I was having a hard time thinking about like topics for a video that wouldn't be about the news and really depressing. And I asked my 8-year-old son on the way home from school, and he said, "You should talk about the history of the platypus." And I was like, "Bud, I don't know the history of the platypus." "Well, now I do. So let me tell you a few interesting facts about the platypus and how it relates to history." So first off, the platypus is from Australia, and it's always been significant to Aboriginal Australian people. It features as different characters in some of their traditional stories. They have like a totem of a platypus. There are some different groups where it holds extra special significance. And so more recently, like in the last few decades, it's become sort of a cultural symbol of all of Australia as Australia tries to reckon with kind of re-including the Aboriginal story into their national story. So for example, it was like a mascot for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Now, when Europeans arrived in Australia and discovered, quotes, the platypus in 1799, when they brought one back to like study even more, the people were like, "This is not a real animal. You just took a bunch of different animals and sewed them all together." And then eventually they were, no, it's real. It's weird. We know. It was so unique that it became sort of a status symbol. Well, for one, it got hunted for its fur by Europeans until it was, very much endangered. And then the Aboriginal people they had originally hunted the platypus for food, but then by the early 1900s, when the platypus was like endangered, the Aboriginal people became kind of the main group advocating to save the platypus. But anyway, over time it became sort of the status symbol if you were like a collector of rare things. And the person who was maybe the most that was none other than Winston Churchill. Literally in 1943, I believe in the middle of World War II, Winston Churchill was kind of pissed at Australia. Remember, it was, part of the crown. Like their troops were supposed to go and support the mother country. But instead of sending troops to support England, they were like, no, we need to protect Australia because we got this whole other war in the Pacific going on. So to smooth things over, Winston Churchill was like, well, just send me a platypus and we'll call it even, I guess. I don't know. So Australia sent a live platypus named Winston as sort of a like gesture of goodwill. Winston died on the way to London, and the story was that like a German submarine had attacked the ship and that caused enough stress that Winston died, and they were trying to blame the Germans however they could. It turns out later they just discovered it was like heat stress. Basically it got too hot on the ship, and Winston passed away, and they couldn't blame the Germans. That was one death they couldn't blame the Germans for. Anyway, now we know about the history of the platypus. Good suggestion, Leon.